We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, the Regional Transportation Council. At 1 o'clock, welcome everyone here, and Judge Bates, I see you up there. And see some other names that are joining us, and glad to have everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. First on the agenda is the minutes from January 25th. Okay, motion to approve. So moved. All right, have a motion, John, is there a second? Second. Is Jim a member?
Yes, he is.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jim. Sorry, I had to ask. No, he's on KIPTA board. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have public comments.
There were no public comments received, Judge.
No public comments received. Anyone on the Zoom, need to comment? Of course, it's not, that'd be public, so, hearing none, next we have a KYTC guest speaker, Jackie Jones. We'll turn the floor over to you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone can hear me.
Judge Bates can't pick up the audio, is what he says on Zoom.
Let's see
The
here.
only way to go.
Yeah, we can hear you in the room at least, Jackie.
Okay, great. Can you see my slides here?
No, you'll have to share your screen.
Oh. I don't know what I was thinking. Hold on, let me get out of them. And I apologize if you hear my cat as soon as she heard people talking. She decides she believes very firmly she is a part of the team, whether I tell her she is not. Sorry, I don't use Zoom as much as we use Teams, so it always takes me a second to get used to it as well. Okay, now let's try this again.
We got it now.
Awesome. So my name is Jackie Jones. I'm with the Transportation Cabinet Office of Local Programs. Our office handles the Transportation Alternatives Program, which I'm talking about today, and the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, as well as the Scenic Byways Program for the Cabinet. Well, see if I can move my slides over. Okay. We're a pretty small office. There's myself, Mike Jones, who's our historic preservation coordinator, Holly Crossway, who is fairly new, and she is a federal program specialist. She primarily works on TAP projects that are not funded through the MPO TAP programs. And Vicki Barnes, who is also very new, and she's our grants administrator. And she will be the person you get if you have a project with us. You'll get the memorandum of agreements or supplemental agreements from her. She would get your reimbursement requests, that kind of thing, and handle those things for us as well. And I primarily do CMAQ projects and the TAP projects that are funded through the MPO's TAP programs. I handle the Scenic Byway stuff too. It's fairly minor, and then sort of programmatically handle all the programs within our office. I've been asked to talk about transportation alternatives. We are having an application cycle that starts May 1st and will go through June 14th of this year. The program's funded through FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration. Funds get sub-allocated to states for use on surface transportation projects. I think the most common one we get is bicycle and pedestrian facilities like sidewalks, shared use paths, things of that nature. There are some other types of projects you can do. We'll get into that a little bit later. If you ever want to see a full list of the eligible project categories and eligible applicants, you can always go to the FHWA Transportation Alternatives Guidance. They go into a little more detail on each of those things. And just recently I've started getting a lot of questions on how we get our money and how we have to give it out. So I've added in this little slide that shows how funds are allocated to the states. So the states get a TAP apportionment, and actually right off the top, if the state participates in a recreational trails program, the money for that program comes out of the TAP funding. Kentucky does have one, so that money gets taken off. Then the money that's remaining, we have 59% get suballocated to what they call these sub-state areas based on population. And those are a population of under 5,000, areas with a population between 5,001 and 49,999, areas with a population between 50,000 and 200,000. All of those funds get handled by the Transportation Cabinet. We include those when we have an application cycle. Those funds are part of what we're using in that application cycle. Areas with a population of over 200,000, KIPTA is one of these areas. Those funds get suballocated to the Metropolitan Planning Organization in the state, and they hold their own application cycles for the funding. And then once they select the projects, then those projects come to my office, and I am the person that administers those on behalf of the cabinet. Any kind of suballocated money that we get for the TAP program can't be transferred to other programs. So you might have heard cases where there's federal money and you can take up to 50% of that and transfer it to a different federal program source. You cannot do that with our suballocations. And our suballocations have to be spent on on TAP projects in the areas that meet the population criteria. Out of the remaining money, 41% of that, the cabinet can use anywhere in the state. So there's no population requirement there. And we call those flex funds. So if you're going to apply for the TAP program, the project has to have a surface transportation relationship. It should promote accessibility and connectivity, meet the requirements of one of the eligible categories, and you have to, we only funded 80%, so you have to have a 20% local cash or property match for the funding. So I've kind of shortened, I haven't shortened the list, but I've shortened the description of all the eligible activities that you can do under the TAP program. Again, by far the most common request for funding we get is on bicycle and pedestrian facilities of some kind. But you can also do things like the construction of turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas, or historic preservation. If any of you all were around in local government when the Transportation Enhancement Program was a thing, you will probably remember that you could do historic preservation under that as well. And it kind of let you do it on almost anything. We ended up spending a lot of TE money on projects that today makes no sense we spent transportation enhancement money on. So when the federal government came out with this program, which replaced the TE program, they said you can only do historic preservation on a transportation building or facility. So like a depot, or that's probably the most common thing at this point that anyone's asked about. We've had some requests for restoration of old rail cars and things like that. You can also use it for the conversion of abandoned railway corridors. Those are usually turned into rails to trails projects, inventory control and removal of outdoor advertising, archaeology activities related to transportation projects, certain environmental mitigation activities. And those are very specific things. So if you're curious about that, I would advise going into the guidance to look at it, or you can shoot me an email. And they got rid of the dedicated Safe Routes to School program, and all of those types of activities are now eligible under the TAP program. So some of the things you can't fund with TAP are administrative costs. So if you hire someone to handle the project, not a consultant or things like that, but you can't pay a grants administrator out of the program to complete an application for you, or for any kind of promotional activities, or anything that can be deemed a maintenance or an operational activity. any kind of general recreation facilities or park facilities. And I have not added a bullet in for this yet, but unfortunately this has come up in the last year or so. We can't use it to pay for you to replace your sewer system. And I know some people may laugh at that, but you would be surprised at the number of people that have tried to sneak that in, or a flood wall, or things of that nature. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's been there, but those were actually two in recent months that have come up. So it has to have a very distinct transportation relationship. And that's not to say something, if it's incidental, might not be able to be included, but it can't be your whole project, is what we're saying. And on eligible applicants, the federal government's expanded this a little from what it used to be. I have starred local governments because it is definitely our preference at KYTC that if you're going to apply and you're one of these other, with the exception of the transit agencies, probably they can, we've worked with them on other LPA projects, but we prefer a local government be the applicant because they are more used to doing these things with us. They have more things in place to do procurement in the manner in which it needs to be done on these federal aid projects. So if a nonprofit wants to do something, we would really encourage them to partner with a local government on it. That's probably where you would see that the most. And also KYTC as a state DOT is not eligible on its own to apply or utilize the TAP money. But if there was a local government or one of these entities that wanted to do a project, but they did not feel like they could do it and wanted to come ask the cabinet if we would act as the applicant, we can do it then. We'd have to have a letter and things like that. So as I mentioned earlier, our application cycle starts May 1st through June 14th. The application, the instructions and everything is on our website, the Office of Local Programs website. Once we get the applications in, we then send them out to each of our highway district offices. So anything that comes out of this area would go to the District 5 office. If projects from District 7 area will go to District 7 office. And the LPA coordinator from that district, plus the OLP staff, and usually someone from the Division of Program Management staff, we all score the application. So we have a scoring system for them. And then once we get all the scores in, we usually do meet and talk about the applications because being in central office in Frankfort, I don't have as intimate of a knowledge of some of these projects or roads or areas the way someone that is actually in that district would have. So sometimes it's very good for us to sit and talk to the district about the project and get their thoughts on it. And they sometimes bring things to light that we're not necessarily seeing. But once we get our scores together, we then make our recommendations for funding based on the highest scoring projects and the availability of funding that we have. Things that sort of reminders or things we want people to keep in mind. If you are an LPA, as we call the cities and counties that have funding with us, a local public agency, and you have an open TAP project right now, and you need additional funding for that, you don't currently have enough federal funding for it, you would need to apply for more money during this application cycle. We don't just add money to a project as that project is going along because suddenly the project costs more. So people need to keep that in mind. The projects have to follow the KYTC local public agency guide, and that's available. There's a link to it also on our website, but every aspect of your project follows that. And in a very simplified way of explaining it, that guide treats your project very similarly to the way we handle cabinet projects. And I understand that sometimes people think that's overkill, but there's a lot of requirements on a federal aid project that we cannot get around. And that guide helps ensure that you're meeting those requirements. And you should take those requirements into account when you're building out your project application, particularly your budget. We do have a place in the application for a contingency in your budget, but applicants totally can inflate the amount of funding they're requesting to account for inflation or time delays or any kind of unforeseen costs, to try and help make sure you don't have to come back and ask for money during another application cycle. All the applications will get emailed to our office email address, and any questions people have related to the application process should also be sent to that. And when we receive the applications, you'll get an email back that says we've received it. So when we score the project, the things that we're looking for on the projects are project readiness and connectivity, accessibility, safety, and impact. So you would be scored on, there's points for whether or not the project is part of a bike ped master plan or an economic development plan. It's a very small amount of points right now because we realize not everyone has that kind of thing. So we're not totally trying to penalize people for not having it. That you show a clear purpose and need for the project. We do look at what your status is on any current or open projects you have with us in our office. Whether or not we believe the budget you've included is reasonable, and whether or not your implementation schedule is reasonable. We may reach out to an applicant and say, hey, we're looking at this and we think it's a good project, but we really think you've grossly underestimated how much money you need. If we help you put together a better budget, can you come up with match for that larger amount of money? So we don't necessarily, my point being, we don't necessarily just look at it and blatantly go, well, they grossly underestimated this cost, we're not even considering it. If we really think it's a great project and they just need to adjust this and they're able to, we would reach out and try to help them do that. On the other side of things, we want to make sure that projects connect users with essential services. We do give points, a few extra points if a project's located within an economically disadvantaged area. We look at whether or not the project addresses specific safety concerns, because there is a lot of push from the Federal Highway Administration that on these types of projects that you're really looking at and prioritizing safety and accessibility. Looking at whether or not the project can reduce vehicle miles traveled or has any other kind of air quality benefits, and whether or not there's any public involvement. So you've had any public meetings on the project and that kind of thing. Funding can't be transferred to a different project. So if you get awarded money for a project and you get started on it, something comes up and you're like, well, we can't do this project. You can't come to us and say, well, since we can't do this project, can we just use the money on a different project? Anything would revert back into the program and our pot of money. There's something called a unique entity identifier. Applicants have to have one at the time you apply for the funding, and you have to have a current one the entire time the project is open. That is something with the federal government. You register for that in the system for award management with the federal government, and it's free to do so, but they do require you have that. Another thing I just think everyone needs to keep in mind, because I don't think a lot of local governments know this, but if you do not have your uniform, I think the UFIR is what? Uniform Financial Information Report. Does that sound right, everybody? Maybe. If you're not UFIR compliant, the Department for Local Government puts a vendor hold on your vendor number with the finance cabinet. If you are not familiar with that and have not experienced that, that's great. But what that does is if I have a project with you and you submit a reimbursement request, I cannot pay you because of that hold. It's not just me. No one in the Commonwealth of Kentucky that's doing business with you in state government can pay you if that happens. It's a very good motivator to get your reports in, I guess, but it does put us in a pickle. So we are paying more attention to that and checking at the time you apply that you're UFIR compliant, because if you we have had an instance where an LPA was so many years behind and it was going to take them so long to get compliant that we couldn't continue with their project. And so I want that out there and up front for people as they're applying so that they know that and keep that in mind. And that's kind of about it on my little presentation there. There's my contact information and our website information on that slide. And if anyone has any questions that's in the group right now, I'm happy to try and answer them.
Could you go back to the slide of the eligible projects?
Yes. Are you curious about a specific one, or did you just want to
No, just in general.
just see the whole list again? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Jones? I would, I'll be specific to my county. This is Scott Travis, county judge in Spencer County. And I know we've had a TAP project going at our high school, maybe back to 2017. And I believe you and the mayor of Taylorsville, Mayor Spencer, have had some conversations. And I want to thank you for help giving us information. It's still a work in progress. We have a high school that was built in 1982 or 3. I started as a junior there, graduated in 85, and we still have to walk in the grass, or they do. Kids are still walking in the grass, and they had applied for a TAP program years ago, and it never came to fruition, and still hasn't. And we're starting the process again and working to try to come to a resolution. And so we're open for any help and advice, I guess.
Well, I know that we've been having a lot of conversations with the consultant on it, and it does seem like it's moving a lot more than when I took it over a year ago when the TAP coordinator we had at the time left. I know some of you all in the meeting know me and know I've been in this office for 20 years, and some of you guys have never met me before, but I have been in the Office of Local Programs, or in my department, I should say, for 20 years. And we did have someone else that was there handling, like I said, the TAP stuff that didn't come from the MPOs, and she left in late January of last year, and I took over all her open projects, and the Taylorsville project was one. At the time, it didn't seem like much was going on with it. So it has certainly moved forward more, Judge, than it was at the time. But there's some complicated issues with it. We've been.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I just want to thank you for help getting it going again. It is very important to us to try to get some resolution there. So thank you.
You're more than welcome, and I really think highly of the mayor there.
Yes,
I really like her a lot.
She spoke highly of you, and again, I want to thank you here just for helping her out and working with us, because she and I are both new to politics, and but we see this need, and this is a program that we're going to try to see through. So. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome.
Anyone else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
This is Judge Ogden from Trimble County, and similar to Scott's problem, we have kids walking along Highway 421 from Bedford up to the schools, and it looks like that a project has been added to the SHIP list for that this time as well. So if that one comes across your desk too, please work with us on that one too, because we actually had probably 10 years ago, we had a child get struck, killed by a car up there. So because they were walking alongside the road. So, and our mayor in Bedford has been trying to get this done for many years. So I just wanted to put that out there for you too. And
Okay.
any help would be appreciated.
I don't really have anything to do with the shift process personally. That is handled, out of the division of planning.
Okay,
But, you know, so I don't know if it's actually in this highway plan, if it's getting funded out of, the current biennium's budget. But if the city wanted to, and not knowing, this is me not knowing anything about the project, but if they wanted to talk about putting in an application for the TAP program, they're more than welcome to call me.
okay. Is that something the county,
Or the
can partner
county.
with us?
Yeah, you all could work on it together, however you wanted to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
No
Judge,
problem.
that project is in the 6-year highway plan for 2028. So it's not in the biennial, but it's in a 6-year. So unfortunately, every 2 years when they do the budget, there's a chance for them to kick that further down the road.
Yes.
So TAP may be an option that has the 20% match. And of course, the state project, you wouldn't have a local match. But like I said, there's potential that it could get kicked down the road at a later date.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. I remember I used to have a legislator that I knew very well, and he'd always call me when the highway plan would come out because he didn't understand it very well back in the day. And he'd be so excited because he'd go, I had a project in my district and it's in the plan now. And I'd go look at it and I'd be like, well, sir, I'm sorry, but it's in there, but there's no money. And they can kick them further down, they can take them out. It just, so when it's not in there for the current budget, if you want to pursue other ways of trying to get money for it, it's not necessarily a bad idea. That's kind of my take on it.
Understood.
So Jackie, you said that if they, so City of Taylorsville, I know they need additional money because of the cost increase. Could we come back with a second application for that cost increase plus extending that sidewalk?
Yes, but I'll be honest with you, I'd kind of like us to get what is there right now finished
Okay,
because of how long it's been sitting there and some of the complications that have gone on with it. And then have the city do a new application and kind of start from scratch on like a phase 2. Does that make sense?
yes, it sure does.
Is there a ceiling on the amount of money on this program?
There's not. I mean, I'll say this about it. We get about $15 million a year total for the state money. That's not including the money that's divvied out to the MPOs that get it. And obviously there's a large chunk of that gets broken out into the population breakouts. But we have carryover from previous years and stuff like that. So my thing was when I got promoted and had more control over the program, I want to make sure that we're doing projects that can get done. We're not giving people unrealistic expectations of stuff they can do. And I've done this a long time. And if you come to me and you have a project that's like $90,000, I'd be willing to bet you money right now that you can't do that project for $90,000. And so my antenna pops up much more on a smaller project than it does a bigger one. And I also think that if you can afford the match, because I know match is a problem for some people, and you have a bigger project and it's $1 million, turn in your $1 million project. If we're looking at it and really want to do it and think, well, we've got all these other projects we're trying to do, and we don't know if we can do $1 million one right now, we might reach out to you and ask you if you would mind breaking it down into like 2 smaller projects or something. But the reality is, I think we are better off doing fewer bigger projects than a whole lot of little bitty projects, because what I'm dealing with right now is a lot of smaller projects that did not have enough money from the get-go, and no one told these people from the get-go that you probably didn't have enough money to do the project, and we're trying to find a way to help them get to a finish line. And so, you know, if you have a $20 million project, obviously it would be very difficult for us to entertain that. If you got $1 million project, go ahead and turn it in. You know, dream big.
All right. Yeah, anything else? Anyone on the, online or on Zoom have any questions for Ms. Jones? All right, hearing none, thank you for, contributing to our meeting today.
Well, thank you
Sure
for
we'll be
having
in
me.
touch.
And you guys can just reach out to me if you've got any questions.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank
And,
you. Now I have to figure out how to stop sharing. I'm telling you,
We'll go-
I'm like an idiot with the. Oh, I know what it is. It's being.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
I can do anything you want in Microsoft Teams, but when I get in Zoom, I just feel like it's the first time I've ever used it. Every single time, I feel so ridiculous. Okay, I think I have stopped sharing now, and I will take my leave. And if anyone needs anything from me, you've got my contact information.
And thank you very much. Next item on our agenda are the county transportation updates. Yes, we'll just go around the table, I guess. Judge Osborne and I know we have a report, different report here. Well, that's the last meeting, but, Judge Osborne, I guess you have any transportation report from Trimble County?
I know that they have started construction, utility wise on the turn lanes at the Trimble County High School. They've moved some of the water lines, and I don't know when the rest of that project will kick off and take hold. So as far as our county roads, we're in pretty good shape, getting ready to put out bids for resurfacing again. So, and applying for some 80-20 bridge projects and some discretionary funding too, for some stuff we need to get cleaned up around the county. So.
Judge Bates, I don't know if you can hear us. I see you turning. I don't know if you have a report to give.
Like he's in a short track.
Like you hit the button. Huh?
Can
There
you
you
hear
go.
me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got you.
I'm getting ready to walk in the door. What about that?
Okay.
I'll be
Yeah.
right in there.
We'll start.
Thank
and
you.
We'll save you a spot. So, all right. I'll move on. Is, anyone on with Shelby County?
Hey, Judge, this is Ryan Lipke at Shelby County.
Yes.
I don't have a whole lot to report on. I do know the county is bidding out some paving projects for this spring. It's probably about 6 or 9 roads that looks like in the paper that they put out for advertisement. County Road Department's been out on Gordon Lane where the new Fairfield Inn Hotel just opened up, and where Jephthah Creed and John Deere and all them are down at that eastern end of the roadway. They went in and added pavement on both sides of the road and widened it out to almost 26 feet of pavement now for almost the rest of the roadway. The next step of that project will be to tie in Gordon Lane with the new Gordon Lane within the I-64 Logistics Park, which is where that 1 million square foot and a 500,000 square foot warehouse project is off Taylorsville Road. They'll need to make that tie-in. The right-of-way was granted during that project to tie into that existing Gordon Lane, so the county now is going to take the next step and tie that roadway in. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report. I wish Lawrence from the road department would have been on here, or the judge. They could have given you a little bit more information, but that's all I have at this time, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Good to see you, Judge.
Good, finally get it.
Bumper car.
Yes, sir. I was backing in out here.
Yeah, we were backing in.
I didn't hit nobody's vehicle. Right.
I was hoping.
Yeah.
But, I'll call, Judge Bates, from Henry County, if you have any county transportation updates.
Yes, sir. We don't have much going on in Henry County other than 146. As far as our county, road department, they've been cleaning up brush from the tornado for the last week and a half. We just finally got that all done yesterday. And we, have moved to some dig outs on some base failures and that kind of thing now, so, and we don't have anything in the road plan besides the 146 job. We're pretty much out, ain't we, Vic?
A few things snuck in, there's a attachment here. I'll give you that list. You got $43 million worth in this 6 year.
Well, that's in the 6 year.
Yeah, that's unfortunately not as good as the 2 year.
Yeah.
You're out of luck on the 2 year.
Like I say, we ain't got nothing in there.
Yeah, not in the 2 year.
But, hopefully we can get some of this stuff started. We scored, I thought, pretty good on the shift, but we are struggling with funding. So I'm hoping that'll be better. Maybe better with the next election. Just saying. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Judge Bates. As far as Spencer County goes, on the state side, they're working on Mill Road, which connects to Little Mount, Mount Eden. Putting pipes in, and I think it's scheduled to be resurfaced when they get done. We've got a terrible road, 1633. As far as all the complaints you see on Facebook, pretty much all of them's on that road. I've mentioned it to, District 5, Mr. Bullock, about it, and, of course, they came out and patched it, but it's not scheduled to be resurfaced. So. But
It's rough. It's patch over patch. It'll shake your vehicle to death, especially there's about a half mile stretch. It's just, you've never driven on a gravel road any rougher than it is. So it really does need to be resurfaced this time around.
And it packs a lot of traffic.
If it's considered emergency, it's that bad.
I don't know how we could get some for that. As far as county roads, we're doing like you guys talked about doing. We missed the tornado, luckily, in our area. And we've had one storm and it wasn't terrible. But we missed the bullet this year on lots of bad storms and weather, so forth, but, we're doing the same things. We're fixing some where the roads is, the creeks is eroding into the road, working under, and, we're gonna get our, last year we got a goose egg on the discretionary in our county. And, this year, I'm hoping that we get some that'll work. I told my road foreman to identify the parts of roads. When you got a road and half of it's pretty decent and the rest of it is garbage, we're gonna put down the garbage part. That way it all don't average together. I don't know how exactly they do it. They come out and run and look at it and put a number on it, but we're just putting the very worst parts down, hoping we get some relief on them. But,
And they usually use that number for the entire road, so it'll bring the number down
well,
by the good part.
they're supposed to only look at the part we turn in, so I'm gonna turn them in that way. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm learning as I go, but we've got several county roads that should qualify on the discretionary. And then we've used a lot of budgeted money, of our own funds to do some repairs. Our roads overall are decent enough. We've done a lot of shouldering on the roads. When the blacktop gets this high, the surface is usually pretty good until you meet somebody and you're in a sedan and you drag the bottom out of your car, or you're hauling a skid loader on a trailer, you gotta unload it to get off the edge, I've had to do that. But we're working on those, but, just a work in progress in our county on about everything.
You wanna tell them about, obviously, the Whitfield Lane?
Well, we've got and this is good, get you guys input on it. We have a development, just a residential development coming in. And, we're hoping to get, like 2 water lines connected. There's a water line at dead ends, they gotta flush it. And there's no fire plugs on it because it's 4-inch. We're gonna try to get it upgraded. But our planning and zoning turned down originally because, the roads were too narrow. There's a state road that dead ends. It's the only state road in our county that dead ends, other than what's around Tocqueville Lake. There's 254 homes that lives on this road, one way in, one way out.
4 miles long.
And, it ends at a county road, so, but the planning and zoning denied his request because they wanted the roads to be better. But he agreed to, he tried it again and he agreed to fix the roads, including the state road. Does that happen very often, that a developer is asked, and of course he agrees, or is it ever required that a developer fix a state road?
Only if they get permission from KYTC,
Correct.
and I'm sure KYTC is gonna say, yeah.
Okay, but it's not a requirement, KYTC, that a developer fix a state road. That's kind of a Jim.
It's the entrance off the state road.
Well, there's state road, and then it's in Bullitt County, and then this road, Whitfield Lane starts at state road.
Where is the actual
It's at
cut in to the subdivision on the county
it's on
road?
the county part.
But the state road did into a county road, which is about a half mile long to the division. And he's agreed to widen the county road, which is, it's okay now. And then he agreed to widen 4 miles of the state road.
No, not 4 miles, just a portion of it.
Just whatever, that the state required him to do, curves and things like that.
Well, no, the state hasn't required anything. My planning and zoning was going to require, asked it of him. And he
Because the
refused.
road's not the certain spec.
Right,
Is that
The only thing in there, do they have an attorney? The planning commission can recommend improvements to the state, they cannot require
see, that's the answer that I thought.
it. They can recommend, and then they have to get in touch with KYTC and work that out. They cannot require.
This has happened with development. And, most people's opinion of that too, that the state road, even though it's not really wide or it's kind of curvy, it's no worse than dozens of other center counties that have developments on it that they.
KYTC would get involved if the actual cut in to the subdivision.
Was state.
It was on the state road, and they would do a study only acceleration lane.
Yeah, but it comes off on the.
Yeah.
county for us.
If it's not directly on the state road, they should be required to do it.
Yeah, that's what I need to know. There's actually some debate. Conversations with some in the district. Not necessarily saying it's a requirement. Maybe a suggestion.
Yes.
Of course, some people can turn a suggestion into a requirement.
And the planning commission, they're only. Because you're not planning certain. If you were planning certain, you had an obligation over so much, they could put restriction. Like, you have to get approval from KYTC, but since y'all are not planning certain, they can only make them. Is that right, Brian? He's the here.
Very good.
All right, I got a little distracted there. Had somebody step in, but, what we would do in that situation is if, of course, we do traffic studies and everything to make sure that the roads can handle the increase in traffic from a development, but if it's on a state road, the commission will approve it conditioned upon them getting approval from the state to make those improvements. If the state will not give them permission to improve the roadways, then they can't develop their property.
even if it's not located on a state road?
Correct.
Okay,
If it's, so we study intersections with our traffic studies, so, and the state has recently came out with that even if it's a project that is off of a county or city road, but that development will impact a state road, then they want to be involved or they get involved. But like I said, we would condition them on their approval. That if
based
they,
on their people.
yeah, I mean, if they can get approval from the state to widen it or make the improvements, then they can develop. But if they can't, then that project's dead in the water until they can get that condition completed.
All right, thank you for the information.
Yeah.
That helps us out. All right, next on the agenda is the other business, item number 6.
Yeah.
6-year highway plan projects.
Yes, yeah, the legislature recently passed and the governor signed the biennial highway plan and the 6-year highway plan. As we were talking about before, the biennial plan money is better than the 6-year money. But if you combine them, there was $180 million for Shelby County, $141 million for Spencer County, $43 million for Henry County, and $21 million for Trimble County. The list is in the back of the packet. You'll see a lot of the projects from the shift process are in that list. KYTC also has a planning study that's described 3 possible build concepts for a new interchange on I-64 between the Gene Snyder Freeway and Simpsonville. Each concept would also include a north-south connector between Shelbyville Road and Taylorsville Lake Road or Fisherville Road. One of the concepts generally follows Echo Trail and Gilliland Road, and it's been estimated to cost $130 million. Another concept would generally follow Eastwood Fisherville Road, has been estimated to cost $170 million. And then there's a third concept that generally follows Clark Station Road, that's near the Jefferson and Shelby County line. And that's estimated to cost $120 million. And they had public meetings on it on April 16th and April 17th. The Safe Streets and Roads for All program had a steering committee meeting on April 10th. Judge Travis, I think you made it to that meeting. It was shared that 2 jurisdictions of the 16 participating had the highest fatality rates over the past 5 years were Trimble County and Henry County. Both of them had greater than 1 fatality per 1,000 residents. Trimble County had 15 fatalities, and Henry County had 16 fatalities over the 5-year period. The consultant HDR plans to meet individually with you guys during the 3rd quarter of this year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? The next meeting will be July 25th. It'll be locked in this room as usual. That sound right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so anything else need to come before our meeting today? Any other information? All right, there we go. Entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion by Judge Osborne, second by Jim Travis to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. We're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you.